Hi, Jessica. Thank you for joining us today. So to kick it off, briefly, can you tell us a bit about your career path and what led you to your current role?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mindy. I'm so happy to be here. So thank you so much for the invitation. I, like most people in college, had no clue what I wanted to do. So for me, it was, I gravitated to accounting and finance classes, and I relied on all of my professors to help figure out what I might do with some of the things that I liked most about my classes. So, as an example, as a 19 or 20-year-old, I didn't even know what a banker really did. I tried to research a little bit. It was a little before the internet, so you could only find out so much at the libraries. I would ask my professors, like, what do bankers do? What is that job like? And that's how I learned a little bit about what I was interested in. That I took a class on investments. That class is all about analysis. I loved it. The final project was like doing a full-on stock analysis. And so my professor helped direct me into training programs out of undergrad that would lead you into careers like that in a bank. So I ended up in a bank. And then later, when I went to Georgetown for grad school, I knew a lot more about the industry. So I wanted to take the same skill set that I had around analysis. And instead of being at a bank on the sell side, which is what they call it, I wanted to be on the buy side. So in a way, I knew where the skeletons were buried, how to structure high yield and loans. And I wanted to be a buyer of those transactions that I had spent my banking career structuring.
Awesome. That's really cool to hear a bit more about your background. We'd also love to hear, what do you love about your current job?
Well, I would say this job and all of my jobs. I love solving problems. And now that I've been doing it for so long and I'm in an executive role, the problems have just gotten bigger and more complicated. But at the end of the day, it's the same kind of thing. You take a question and you break it down into digestible pieces, and you go off and try to solve it one piece at a time. Somebody told me, there's something I think about all the time, like I'll have some huge problem and I'll remember this. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So I think about that with all of these big problems. Now my problems are just bigger and more complicated. It used to be like a deal. Now it's like a reorganization or a strategy problem that I need to solve, where there's tons of work stream involved. And I like to be able to just break it down into pieces and go tackle one at a time and come up with a roadmap. And it's like a strategy and long-term vision muscle that I get to exercise now that I didn't get to exercise as much earlier in my career. And then, I don't know, some other examples. In this role, I get to decide where I want to spend my time. Like, that's the great thing of getting into positions of leadership. So like over the last few weeks, I had these check-in calls with my team, and my organization's like 60 people. So I did small groups, and I just said, like, this is an airing of the grievances. Tell me like the worst thing about your day to day. And, a few things came out of all of those meetings, and I can just decide to eliminate them. Like, there was some task that people were complaining about, and I just said, why do we even do that? Let's just stop doing it. And you can see instant gratification that, hey, I'm in a position of making decisions and I can just eliminate some of the obstacles in the day-to-day for people. And then I guess one of the other things I was thinking about, early in your career, you're the doer. So you're the one really doing the work. Later in your career, in positions of leadership, you realize you're not actually doing anything. But it's given me so much more leverage. So when I was, an analyst covering deals or a banker covering clients, I could have, a few dozen deals or credits or clients that I could manage at any one time. Right now, the portfolio that I speak to is 500 deals. And I can do that because they just bring me in when it's time to make a decision. And I always say, like, I get on these Zoom calls and drop grenades and then leave, and I don't actually have to do any of the cleanup work. So I'll be able to weigh in with my experience now more so than I used to, which was really just me weighing in with my research on that particular question or client or deal. So those are probably like the best parts about it. But over my entire career, every role I've ever had, the part that I like the most is expressing or exercising my judgment. Like I remind myself all the time, like they're paying you to think, they're paying you to have an opinion. They're not paying you to populate spreadsheets, report facts, like the value that you bring every day is to take all of the information that you can, figure out what's important and what's not important, and express in a judgment on it, and be willing to share that judgment. And that's the part that always energizes me, having an opinion. My husband will tell you the same thing.
I think that's a really good point for you to bring up, the fact that, to be able to analyze, data and to have an opinion and to express it, especially in this day and age where I feel like a lot of folks are reluctant to have strong opinions on various topics. And since you mentioned being, in a leadership role at this point in your career, do you have any advice on balancing your work life and your personal life? I mean, especially in an industry that's so intense.
I kind of laugh on the inside. It's a daily struggle, and it's a struggle that probably every woman faces. And I'm sure men too, but I can only speak for the women part of it. It's unusual for me that I had kids later in life. So most of the people in positions that I'm in, their kids are older than mine. They're like in college at this point. And my kids are young. I have 6-year-old twins. And a woman in my group said to me recently, she's like, I love that you parent so loudly. So I'm on Zoom calls with 150 people and my kids will interrupt. And I'll say, I love you, have fun at the playground. And then I'll get right back to my meeting. And I didn't realize, or I didn't appreciate how much that inspires the other women in my team to be okay with the fact that, hey, we're all multidimensional and we have different things that weigh on our time and require our focus. And it's okay to just juggle it as best you can. But I'm a planner. Like I spend a lot of time being deliberate about prioritizing. I keep a grid that sort of separates everything I have on my plate into like whether it's urgent and important, not urgent, but important. And, a lot of things that are not urgent or important. And then like everything in between. And I adjust that all the time to make sure I'm focusing on things that matter. But, like I postponed a bunch of meetings the other day because my daughter finally learned how to do a cartwheel and I needed an hour to go run to the playground so I could watch her do it. Because those are moments that you're never going to get back. And I'm like, that's how you need to prioritize your day to day. Like if something's really important, find the time to do it. And everything else can wait. The spreadsheets and the memos and the meetings, they'll always be there. But I think planning and organization helps reduce the stress around it quite a bit. And, I'm not great at me time. I try really hard to find time. I probably could work out more than I do. At least make sure I get in, some time, like I'll get up and go for a walk. Maybe I'll get up a little earlier, stay up a little bit later. Or like today I didn't dry my hair because I wanted to take my kids to school instead. So you just have to be deliberate about it and don't feel bad about it. Like I've just chosen not to feel guilty all the time. It's like there are only 24 hours in the day and it's always just a balance.
Yeah, I feel like that's such an important point about like making sure you're just unapologetic about taking time for yourself. So that's really good to hear from someone who definitely prioritizes that, and especially spending time with your kids. That's really cool to hear as someone who like wants to one day do that myself. So how do you think women can best help other women in the professional world, and what do you think we can do better at?
I'm going to use the word deliberate again. It's one of my favorite words. Like I try to do things with intent and I try to put them as part of a priority in my day to day. So I'm very deliberate about helping other women. I had a lot of people in my life help me, but not a lot of women, interestingly. And times have changed in that regard. Capital One has a very deep and important diversity, inclusion, and belonging program. It's a big part of the culture of Capital One, which is one of the things that attracted me to this firm. My last firm was a big private equity firm. I mean, amazing company, but it was not a priority at all, I would say. But it's a big priority here. So I mentor. I get involved in every program. I do things like this interview anytime somebody asks me, and I'm happy to do it. I started a group in my division. We call it Women in Workout because we were a workout function, a lone workout function, and we meet every month. And I come up with topics, but I like force interaction. I talk about personal branding. We talk about career development. I answer their questions. I make it like free form. And I offer to mentor or sponsor, which is like mentoring on steroids, anybody that asks me that is willing to put in the effort. So I think you just have to do it on purpose.
What would you say is, one of the biggest challenges women face in your industry today, and what advice do you have for how to deal with that problem?
Every company is not the same. And, I was at a company where it was the first time I believed there's a glass ceiling in a lot of ways. There were women executives there, but it was fewer and far between. And I chose to go to a company that prioritized it because it's important to me. So I would say one thing is it's okay to make a career decision based on that. Go to a place where you're going to be valued for your views and your unique approach to whatever career or work that you do. The other thing I would say is if you're a mentee, and I love to mentor other women, but I find it's many of the folks that I've tried to help, they don't want to help themselves. Like they'll turn up for a meeting with these blank stares, having done no preparation, and expect me to tell them what to do. And what I've always done is believe like you have to know yourself and you have to do the work to develop that vocabulary to describe yourself to get help. Like you have to know what to ask for. I'll do anything in the world to help you, but I'm not going to come up with what you need. You have to tell me what you need and then let me help you get it. So, when I was earlier in my career, I read like 1,000 job descriptions and I would write down on a piece of paper, the bullet points that resonated with me. Oh, like that part of that job sounds really cool. I don't know about the whole job, but like that piece of it, I think I would be really good at, or this piece of another job, I'd like to learn how to do that. Or that would be a great skill that would help me. Or this is something that, is really hard for me. Maybe I should work on getting better at it. And I knew, like, if somebody asked me, well, what do you want to do? I could tell them, like, these are all the things that I really like. These are the things that I don't think play to my strengths. Can you help me find a role that sort of fits in that framework? And then the other thing I would say is, like, when you do all of that research, take personality tests. It's crazy what you can learn about yourself. Might not be new, but it'll give you the vocabulary to describe yourself. You like to work alone. You like to work on a team. You are analytical, but you need to go off and like figure things out in your own process. You like to think on the fly. You love to sell. You don't love to sell. Like you need to be able to describe yourself along with your skills. And then you need to practice. Like I had my elevator pitch and I would go in the bathroom and close the door and say it out loud into the mirror over and over and over again, so many times that I never even had to think about it. If somebody asked me, tell me about yourself, or what do you want to do, or what do you think you're good at? I could just answer it without even thinking about it. It was natural. So I would tell people, anyone, woman or otherwise, put in the work, know yourself, be able to describe yourself, and target opportunities and work relationships that help you get better at what you want to get better at, learn what you want to learn, or help you get pointed in a direction that you think is best for you in your interests.
Yeah, that's great advice. And this is kind of semi-related to that, but I myself am about to enter into investment banking. And so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on any advice you'd give to me or undergrad women like me who are about to enter into the industry.
Like, it is a tough environment. There's no question. Like, I didn't have my 20s. All I did was work. I think things are better now. It is a great experience. Like, that is where the wheels of finance turn, because you're in the middle of all the deals that happen, every capital raise, all of the investment that happens, buyouts, all the different types of financial securities that come to play. That is the place to learn it. Be a sponge, be willing to do anything you're asked, volunteer to be on any deal team. Don't let any individual discourage you. There's strong personalities that are attracted to that field. Some of them are hard to work with, but use your voice. Like, you're there because you have a brain and you bring something to the table, and you earned that seat at the table. Don't be afraid to believe that you have a seat at the table and you earned it. And you want to listen and learn, but don't be afraid to contribute and just ask a million questions. If somebody gets mad at you for asking questions, whatever. I ask so many questions. To this day, I do. I never feel bad, and I never apologize for asking a question. Like, if I need the answer, I need the answer. If it's a stupid question, well, so be it. Call me stupid, but either way, it's not going to help me unless I know the answer. So I'm going to figure it out.
So pivoting from that a little bit, while you were, going through your career trajectory, did you have strong mentors? And about like surrounding that, how did you find these mentors, and what were the challenges to developing those relationships?
I definitely had mentors along the way. Maybe not so much formal mentors, but you'll find that there are people that you gravitate to. Sometimes they might be your peers. So it might be somebody that you work with that just helps provide context for you, or reads the room a little differently than you, and can help you process it. I always looked for people that would give me honest feedback, or people who I respected because of how they came across, or what they knew, or how they came to work every day. And I would just ask questions like, how did you get here? Or how did you get good at this? Or why did you choose this role? Or for me, a lot of the times it was on a deal. Like, what made you ask the questions you asked? Or, why do you think that's the right answer? What can I do to get to the point where I see that as the answer? Like, how did you balance the pros and cons of your recommendation on this deal? I would always just go to the people that I thought were the most impressive and ask them to help me understand the way that they think about it. And then, over time, you come across others. Like, in my roles, I've gotten to be really good friends with a lot of attorneys that, every deal, there's always lawyers involved, and lawyers are really fascinating. They see so many people on so many types of transactions, and they're good at conflict resolution, which is not my best skill. And I would ask attorneys all the time, like, from their broader perspective, how do you think I did in that meeting? Or what do you think I missed? Or who are people that you think I should meet? And I would ask for introductions to people once I knew who it is I wanted to talk to. I was interested in going from the sell side and banking to the buy side, the investment side. And so I asked somebody senior, I asked a professor at Georgetown, can you introduce me to somebody? And then, I killed myself to prepare. So I knew what I wanted to get out of the meeting with whoever it was I was being introduced to. I want this person to help me find a job, or I want this person to introduce me to somebody that can help me find a job. And if you go in asking for something, the higher up somebody is that you're talking to, the more likely they are super action oriented. And so have your ask, know what you want to get out of the meeting, and then just don't be afraid to go for it.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I'm also curious to hear who along your career have you seen as role models and what qualities did you admire about them?
I mean, nobody that you would have heard of, right? Like it's people that I come across in business, like a portfolio manager that I just thought was awesome in front of clients. Like, how did he answer all those hard questions without freaking out or sweating? And those are the people I would gravitate to. The job that I have now, I got because I was introduced to the person who used to run the group by a lawyer that I work with. Because the lawyer knew me really well. We became friends, and he would always give me honest advice about the types of roles that I would be great at. And he said, you should meet this guy. And I was like, I don't know, I'm not interested. And he goes, you should meet him. And so I did. And after I met him, I was like, wow, I love the way he thinks about strategy. I love the way he's honest, but still positive. And so I ended up taking the job and working for him, and he became an incredible mentor to me. I probably learned more from him in my first year than I did from, the person I worked for the prior 15 years at the PE firm. It's like you find the people that you love how they approach business. And those are the people that I just gravitate to. And now there are a lot of women executives at Capital One, and we've become friends. And we, talk to each other about, how do you deal with this? Or how do you go do all the school projects and still make all these meetings? Or can you check out between 6 and 7 o'clock at night to feed your kids dinner and do homework? How do you manage that? We work together to, sort of live through the realities of day to day. But there are formal mentoring programs that I'm involved in now as a mentor. And so those, I just try to guide the mentee to know what they want from our relationship that's a little more structured.
Would you say that there are specific leadership traits or skills that you think is vital, but you don't see very often in people in those roles?
I think like the two things that I think are most important in leadership that I work on constantly, that are not necessarily my best natural attributes, would be listening skills and emotional intelligence. There are books on emotional intelligence. Being able to really listen, not just to the words coming out of somebody's mouth, but, taking it a level deeper. Why are they asking? What's the intent behind their message or their questions? What do they need from me? Put yourself in somebody else's shoes. I think that really makes you a better leader because it makes decision-making much more clear. It gives you better context. And then, I would say, like, for women entering the workplace or even women in the workplace, there are a lot of stereotypes. There's stereotypes, they're not fair some of the time, but I see them constantly, making statements in the form of a question, being afraid to speak up, being afraid to challenge somebody that's more senior that might not have the right answer, trying to be too modest. Striving for perfection instead of striving for execution, that reluctance to negotiate, and asking for what you want. Like, use your voice. Your voice is your superpower. Don't forget it. Like, don't sit quietly as a wallflower. Your voice is too important.
Awesome. Well, that was really great advice. Thank you so much again, Jessica, for taking the time to talk with us about your career and your experiences in the business world. We're so appreciative that you took the time out of your day. So it was really great talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Good luck to you all.